We have 1 week of this MLB season, and it's getting crazy with these wild cards. We're not going to waste any time. Let's just get right into this American League. So taking a look at this American League, we're going to look at all the teams because everything could change. Like, nothing is really safe here. The only thing that is confirmed is the Blue Jays will be in the postseason. They're currently at 90 wins. They're the best team in the American League right now. And out of the 7 teams we have that can make the postseason, they definitely look like they have the best shot to make it. But I'm not going to lie, they do have a hard schedule. The 6 remaining games the Blue Jays have to play, all of them are home, by the way, so that's definitely going to help them out. Are versus 3 games versus Boston and 3 games versus Tampa Bay. So that Boston series is going to be super critical to the team succeeding, and we'll see what happens with this squad moving forward. That's a huge series for them because if they get swept and the Yankees capitalize, the Yankees can win that division and get that first seed. So it's all to play for with the Blue Jays. So they should be looking good. They are home, so that's going to help them out a lot. But they look like the best team in this American League. Let's move on to Seattle. They recently have had a really good time. They obviously go into Houston and sweep the Astros, and they look like they're going to take that West. Obviously, the 3-game gap, and they just need to close out and play pretty good baseball, and it's not going to be hard to do that with the opponents they're playing as well. They're currently 9-1 in the last 10 games, which is just insane to think about. And they do have the 2nd seed right now, so they also could get a bye if they continue to play good baseball. There's 6 remaining games of the season. They play 3 versus Colorado at home, so that is definitely 3 games they have to win. And then they play 3 games versus LA also at home, so that is going to be a tough series. But I definitely think if Seattle can get those 3 games against Colorado, they sweep them, they should win the division right there. Dodger games will be tough. We'll see if they're able to handle that. But man, Seattle's put themselves in the best position to make the postseason right now, especially with their schedule they have coming up. Let's move on to Detroit. They've struggled a lot. They're 1-9 in their last 10 games. They've on a 6-game losing streak right now. They currently have lost that bye to Seattle, which we talked about. Currently in that 3 seed, winning the Central, and Cleveland is 1 game behind them for this division. So that is super critical, and these teams do play each other this week, which is pretty crazy to think about. I would say Detroit probably has the hardest schedule so far because they play 3 at Cleveland and they play 3 at Boston as well. So that's a pretty hard schedule. So it's really not looking good for Detroit, especially because they're on this losing streak. They have to at least win this series versus Cleveland, because if they lose the series, they will be tied with them. And I imagine if Cleveland wins the series, they probably beat them on the season series total, which means they would win the division if they tie on record. So who really knows? And Boston has been playing pretty okay baseball, so we really don't know where the Tigers are going to be. They have to turn around this week if they want any shot of this postseason. So it's looking a little bit scary if you are the Tigers right now, but those are your 3 teams currently leading their divisions in the American League. And these wildcard teams look extremely good. Let's start with the New York Yankees. Very solid team. First place in this wildcard as it stands. They're only 2 games off the Blue Jays when I'm recording this video. And the Yankees by far have the easiest schedule out of all of these. They play the next 6 games home. They play 3 versus the White Sox and 3 versus Baltimore. So definitely the easiest schedule in this whole wildcard. I mean, these 2 teams are at the bottom of the standings, and these all should be wins for them. Looking at their last 10 games, they're 7-3, so playing phenomenal baseball. I really do think the Yankees win the division. I'm gonna be honest, I really do think they win that East. They should not lose any of these games, to be all the way honest. They should end up getting that bye. I think Toronto, they definitely are a good team, but I don't expect them to win out. I'd be very impressed if they did win out, don't get me wrong. I think the Yankees are in the best position to capitalize if we do see Boston win those games. So Yankees are in a really good spot. Let's move on to Boston right now. Currently have the 2nd wildcard spot, and they're 3 games down on the Yankees, and they're 1 game behind the Guardians and Astros. So they're in a difficult spot. Obviously, they gotta win, but once again, they play some tough series. Once again, if you're a Red Sox fan, they have 3 games at Toronto, and then they're home versus the Tigers. So that Tigers series they could capitalize on. If they're able to take 1 or 2 games from Toronto and sweep Detroit, they'll be looking really solid. But once again, we kind of got to see how it plays out. If you're a Red Sox fan, the team looks very good. They're 4-6 in their last 10, so not great, to be honest. They've been playing pretty much okay baseball since that Yankees series, so they're still in a position to compete for sure. And I definitely could see them taking a couple games off Toronto for sure. But we just kind of got to see what happens with that Boston team. Now moving over on to Cleveland right now. As it stands, Cleveland's in a really good spot. I really like this Cleveland team. Currently tied with the Astros, but the keynote with Cleveland is they actually do have the tiebreaker over the Astros. So if these 2 teams end up tying for this 3rd wildcard spot, Cleveland would get that spot. And their schedule is definitely interesting to say the least. They are home the rest of the season. They play 3 games versus Detroit and then 3 games versus the Texas Rangers. And the interesting thing about that Texas series is the last time these teams played each other, Texas swept them. And I remember because I did go to one of these games in Texas. So the Rangers are definitely a solid team. They're not going to make the postseason right now, but they could give them some trouble for sure. But Cleveland's been really good. They're 9-1 in their last 10. They were on that 10-game winning streak before they lost a game to the Twins, unfortunately. But like 2 weeks ago, they were nowhere close to this division. They were, I think, 10 games out of the division, and now they're 1 game out, which is pretty crazy to think about how much this team has turned it around. So super impressive from Cleveland. We'll see if their momentum continues to the rest of the season. season, but it's definitely going to be interesting to watch. And the last team we have in this AL wildcard is going to be the Houston Astros. And once again, they have to win games because they don't have that tiebreaker advantage, but they also have a pretty easy schedule to end the season. Now, the Astros are away for the rest of the season, but they play 3 games versus the Athletics and then 3 games versus the Angels. So those are very winnable games that they have coming up. The A series might be a little challenging. The A's have been pretty competitive. They're 7-3 in their last 10. They're a pretty solid team. Angels, not so much. They're 1-9 in their last 10. So, those are the wins that the Astros probably need right now. All right, so if I had to predict this American League, this is what I'm going to go with. I would say the Yankees win the East and they get the number 1 seed. I think Seattle wins the West and gets the number 2 seed. And I think Cleveland wins the Central and gets the 3rd seed. Those are the 3 I think are going to win the divisions. Now, my wild card will look like this. I think the Blue Jays get the 4th seed, Red Sox get the 5th seed, and the Astros get the 6th seed, which means the Tigers would be out. Now, the Tigers have the hardest schedule. I really do think the fall-off might continue in Detroit. I'm not going to lie. I'm not really confident in that team to really get some dubs, especially versus Cleveland and Boston. So that is what I'm going to predict for the American League. Even though I really like that Tigers team, it's just not looking good for them right now. And that can definitely change for sure. I mean, a lot is going to change in these next couple of days, which is going to be exciting to watch. But that's what I'm going to predict for this American League. But let's take a look at this National League, starting with the Brewers. Now, this team has been phenomenal all season. I think they'll get the number 1 seed. They've actually already clinched a bye for the postseason, which is nice for them. So shout out to the Brewers. They're kind of waiting to clinch that number 1 seed, I think, but I think their schedule is pretty solid. I mean, the last 6 games the Brewers play, they play 3 in San Diego, and then they play 3 home versus the Reds. So they play a lot of postseason teams that really need to clinch and are really fighting for a spot. But like I said, all they need to really do is win like 1 or 2 games, and they get 1st place and they get the best record. So I think the Brewers will be fine. The Phillies are the next team. They currently hold that 2nd spot, already clinched the East. So shout out to the Phillies, and they once again have looked pretty solid, but they still need to win because the Dodgers are only a couple games back of passing them for that bye, so they have to win. But the Phillies schedule is very easy. The 6 remaining games they have, they are home. They play 3 against Miami, and then they play 3 against Minnesota. So those games are super easy, and if the Brewers do struggle, they could definitely get the number 1 seed for sure. They're only 3 games out of doing that. So the Phillies are setting themselves up really nicely. I mean, it's going to be a pretty easy end of the season for them, and I'm excited to see that team back in the postseason. And the 3rd seed is going to be the Dodgers as it stands right now. They've already clinched the postseason, but not the division yet, so they definitely got to play some good baseball coming up. Their last 6 games are away for the end of this season. They play 3 in Arizona and then 3 in Seattle. So once again, both of these teams are still fighting for their postseason spots. Once again, they only really need to win a couple games and the Padres to lose a couple games, which is definitely possible because the Padres have a really hard schedule. But I think the Dodgers will be fine. I think they're going to clinch the West and get that 3rd spot easily. Now moving over to the wild card, this one's pretty straightforward. The Cubs currently have the 4th seed and they have already clinched the postseason. They obviously can't catch up to the Brewers anymore, so they will sit in this wild card and they'll probably stay with this 4th seed, to be honest. The Cubs don't have a crazy hard schedule. They're home for their last 6 games. They play the Mets for 3 and St. Louis for 3, so they could definitely beat St. Louis for 3. I mean that will be really easy for them. The Mets might be a little bit harder, but after that Reds series, they did just get swept, so who really knows what's going to happen. And the 5th seed right now is currently the San Diego Padres, and they haven't clinched the postseason yet. Once again, it's only going to take like 1 or 2 wins to do that. They have a really hard schedule coming up. The Padres schedule is not easy. They are home for all these games, but they play the Brewers for 3 and then they play Arizona for 3, so those games are going to be pretty hard. But unless they can just destroy Arizona, they should be fine. It's hard to say if they're going to catch up to the Dodgers. They're 3 out of that division right now. It's hard to say if they're going to catch them. They would have to win out and probably have the Dodgers lose, so I would say it's pretty unlikely, but I do think they are a playoff team, and I do think they're going to sit in that 5th seed. Now coming up next are the Cincinnati Reds, who are currently tied with the Mets for the last wildcard spot, and they do hold the tiebreaker over the Mets, which is very good news for them. And they're currently on a 5-game win streak as well, so they've been playing pretty good baseball. Their last 6 games look pretty interesting. They play the Pirates for 3 at home, and then they're away against the Brewers for 3. So that's going to be a really interesting series. If they could sweep or take 2 out of the 3 against Pittsburgh and then try their best against the Brewers, I think they could be a postseason team. It's going to be really interesting to see what the Mets do, though. So we kind of got to wait and see. Let's talk about this Mets team next. They've been struggling like we've been talking about. Currently tied with the Reds. Their next 6 games are all on the road. They play Chicago for 3 and then Miami for 3. They have a similar schedule to the Reds where they play 1 hard team and 1 easy team. They play really good against the Cubs and then sweep Miami. They definitely are going to make the postseason. Once again, these 2 teams tie with the same record, then the Reds are probably going to get it because they have the tiebreaker. Now I'm going to include Arizona in this conversation because they're 1 game out as it stands right now. But once again, their schedule is probably the hardest out of anyone. They play the Dodgers for 3 at home and then they play San Diego for 3 on the road. So probably not going to happen if you're a Diamondbacks fan unless this team just goes absolutely crazy and just sweeps both teams. I don't see it happening, but there is an interesting conversation conversation for the Diamondbacks to get in the postseason, but I really don't see it happen, to be honest. It's a really slim percentage, but you never know what could happen once again. So if I had to predict this NL, I'm going to put the Brewers #1, the Phillies #2, and the Dodgers #3. I think it's going to stay the same as it is right now. Then I'm going to put the Cubs #4, the Padres #5, and I do think the Reds have a better shot to make it over the Mets, just because that tiebreaker is going to be very easy for them, because I know they could sweep the Pirates and play pretty decently against the Brewers in my opinion. So I'm going to put the Reds in that 6th seed, which would leave the Mets and Diamondbacks out of the postseason. But we'll see what happens. These are my current predictions because it's literally getting crazy and I just can't wait to see how it plays out. And then after this week, the postseason will literally start next Tuesday, which is very exciting. So a week from when this video is posted, then the postseason will start. If you guys did enjoy this video, let me know your predictions down below in the comment section for the AL and the NL, because there's a lot that could happen in these 6 games. So we'll kind of wait and see. But if you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. See you guys in the next one. Peace out, everyone.